Welcome to Thrive Vision with your host, Dr. Stephanie Ballman.
Hello, everyone. It's Dr. B here with Thrive Vision, and thank you for joining us today on our podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about something that people are really beginning to, there's a bit more chatter about it, right? Like, as I research stuff and as people come into the office and ask questions, we're starting to hear more and more about this. And so this is something that I wanted to spend some time talking about because it is something that could be impacting you. It could be impacting your mom or your grandma. It could be impacting your best friend, your wife, your daughter. And it could be impacting men as well. And we'll get into that and how that can happen. So the major thing that we're going to be talking about today, and I think this is well timed because we're moving into the summer, and that is breast implant illness. So BII, it is becoming a more popular topic that people are learning about and realizing that people are getting sick from breast implants. And so I don't want to get too sciencey about it and about and why it happens. But we are going to dive into it a little bit, right? I don't want to talk too much science, but we need to do a little bit so that you guys can understand why some of these things are happening. And so I want to let you know that implants are not developed to be a lifelong thing that is in the body. And like I said, we're going to get into some other things, but this portion of the podcast is going to be focused on breast implants. And I think that that is important because there are so many women that have breast implants. And I think a lot of women go into it and make this decision not knowing the consequences of some of the things that can happen long term. And it's also possible that you know, doctors that are doing the implants, maybe they didn't know what all the risks were. Maybe there's doctors out there not saying, hey, these are all of the complications that could happen. And that's not to knock anybody. You know, there's the gamut of what you're going to see and hear and who's practicing, because they're human too, right? So keep that in mind. And I do want to say that this is not something to make someone feel guilty or make someone feel bad, right? This is education. And the reason that we're doing this is because if people aren't educated, then they aren't going to be making educated decisions. And maybe you're having some of the symptoms that we're talking about and you had no idea that it could be related back to implants, particularly breast implants. And so again, this is for education. Please don't I know this can be a sensitive subject for some people, so please don't take it as we're trying to point the finger. Just we're trying to educate you so that we can help you improve your health to the best of your ability. So breast implants have been around for a very long time, and we're just beginning to see some of the things that are going on with them. And it's because we're progressing in what we're able to know and the different things that we can test and how we can test them. And so one thing in particular that I want to talk about today with breast implant illness is something called biofilms. And so we'll get into that. But before we move into biofilms, I want to go into some different symptoms that people can be having when they are struggling with breast implant illness. And it's a lengthy list. I'm not going to go into everything, but people can have anxiety, they can have fatigue, they can have muscle pain, joint pain, they can have brain fog, they can have dry eyes, they can have a dry mouth, they can have skin changes. They can have chest pain. They can have difficulty breathing. They can lose their hair. They can have dry hair. They can have chronic headaches. They can have heart issues. There can be swollen lymph nodes. And I'm going to say that that's not just through the axilla area and across the chest, but the entire body is covered in lymph nodes. And so you may be having swelling in an area and you're like, well, where's this coming from, right? It could be related because the lymph nodes are swollen and it's showing up downstream somewhere else. We can also have amnesia is something that sometimes people see. There can be sensitivity to light and to sound. There can be hormone changes. There can be all kinds of things that can happen symptomatology-wise with the breast implant illness. It can also be a cause of some autoimmune conditions. And some of those conditions can include Raynaud's, RA, Crohn's, lupus. It can include MS and Sjogren's and also Graves' disease. And so there's a wide gamut, I think, of different autoimmune type things. And that's because the body is attacking itself, right? It knows something is wrong. And so what it's doing is it's attacking those implants and it's saying, hey, something's going on here and I'm trying to get your attention. And like I said, one of the things that happens with the implants is not just the myriad of symptoms that it produces, but that the implants themselves, because one, they're not meant long term, right? And two, sometimes the materials that they are made out of, and then they're inside your body, we see a lot of mold and bacterial issues. And this is where biofilms come into play, that big fancy word, biofilms. So bacteria and mold produce something called a biofilm, which is like a sticky, slimy covering over the bacteria or the mold in order to protect itself so that it can continue to live, right? It's encased and the biofilm is self-produced. So what that means is that the bacteria is producing this self-encasing film, or the mold is producing a self-encasing film over itself. And antimicrobials sometimes cannot penetrate the biofilm because of what the biofilm is made from. And that can include lipids, which are going to be fats. It's going to be partly protein so that it has that nice sturdy structure. And then the other thing that it will produce is something called, or that it's made out of is how I should say it, is something called polysaccharide. And a polysaccharide, if you break polysaccharides down, they become monosaccharides. And monosaccharides are basically sugar. So we have this encasement of protein, which is providing the structure. It's kind of providing the strength and the tensile strength. We've got fat, and then we've got sugars. Guess what mold and bacteria love? Sugar. So they can use that sugar as a way to help themselves keep producing this film, and so that it continues to grow. And then we've got pockets of bacteria and potentially mold that's just growing. And sometimes the different things that are done for that can't penetrate because of that biofilm encasement that is around the mold or the bacteria. And so this is a huge problem with not just breast implants, but also other implants, which is why at the beginning of the podcast I had mentioned, we can see men with some of these same things. And yes, there are men out there who are getting breast implants, right? But we also need to take a look at other implants as well. And that can include dental implants. Ladies, that can include IUDs. And then that can include other implants around the body because they're not a natural source of the body, and the body's trying to break it down and get rid of it, which is why it's sending some of these things to the area to help break it down, right? What does mold do? It degrades, right? It breaks down things in nature. That's its job. And when mold gets into the body, it's going to help break down the body. It's going to decompose it. And so when the body begins that decomposition cycle, we can see a lot of different symptoms. And so one thing that I highly recommend is that you find a surgeon who can help you with your explant. In this case, we're going to be talking about breast implant to have that explanted. Sometimes women will choose the same surgeon who put them in, but that doesn't mean that that surgeon is necessarily qualified for the explant. And that's because there's a lot of different factors that go into making sure the woman, or sometimes the man, because men are getting breast implants, that person is ready for an explant. So there's a lot of preparation that needs to happen, and then there's a lot of post-surgical follow-up that needs to happen in regards to detoxing. So as far as preparation, and again, I'm not a surgeon, but we want to make sure that the body can handle the surgery, right? We need to make sure that the body can handle drainage. We need to make sure that the gut is okay. We need to make sure, there's just a myriad, y'all. I'm just mentioning some of the things, right? Like I said, I'm not a surgeon. I don't know all the surgical things, but these are some of the things that I would be looking for. Can you cardiovascularly handle it? Respiratory-wise, can you handle it? There's a lot of different things. Can your hormones handle it? Can your gut handle it? So there's a lot of prep that needs to happen. It can also have a huge emotional tie, right? Because you can become, that's part of your identity, especially for women. Sometimes the reason that they choose to get an implant is because it helps boost their self-confidence. And to have that taken out when their identity is now tied to the implant and to the person that they've become with that implant, there's a lot of emotional tie there. And so I think that needs to be handled with care and concern. And then the surgeon needs to know what to be looking for, not just pre-surgery and not just post-surgery, but also during the surgery, right? And be able to handle different factors that could come up during surgery, like maybe there's scar tissue that is around that implant. Maybe the implant has busted. Maybe, the implant, the body has begun to adhere itself in a different sort of way to that implant. And so what do you do about all those things? So I think there's a lot of questions that need to be asked of the surgeon. And I think that they need to be well versed in what they're doing in explant particularly. So post-explant, I think that there's a lot of things that need to be handled by a surgeon and a team that knows really well what to expect and how to help you handle what's going on post-surgery. And some of those things can include making sure your detox pathways are open and functioning. And that's going to include at the cellular level, because when you cut into the body, you're cutting down into those cells, right? The body's going to have to heal. It's going to have to reproduce cells. It's going to have to make new tissue. It's going to have to, and that's soft tissue, hard tissue, nerves, right? It has to heal vessels. And by vessels, I mean blood vessels. So there's a lot of different things that need to be considered. They also need to take a look at supporting the organs. So we're cutting through the skin. We're cutting through nerves. We're cutting through different vascular issues, right? Veins, arteries. We're cutting through a lot of different things to be able to get these implants out. And sometimes there needs to be bone support as well. And then sometimes there could need to be liver support, because sometimes the liver gets very backed up. There may need to be support in regard to bowel or bladder. There's just so many things, because everything in the body talks and communicates. And even though we think we have a pretty good idea, I will tell you that clinically, I often see that there are things, and by things I mean organs, there's organs and tissues and cells talking to something that's like, how is this even happening? And that's because the body is so intimately put together. You never know what is talking to what. And so not only do we need to make sure that drainage pathways are open, but that the mitochondria in the cell are producing good energy for healing. We need to make sure that there's not other mold or toxin issues, right? And those can be heavy metals. That could be part of the implant. That could also just be impeding the healing process. There could be chemicals, which can come from the implants, can also come from drugs that were used, or just the body needs to get rid of some chemicals. And then we can also look at, are there other bacteria, viruses, parasites, right? Are there other toxins that need to be handled so that the body can get rid of and begin to heal itself in a much better fashion? And so having a surgeon who is prepared and qualified to handle the breadth of the situation is highly important. If y'all have questions about symptoms associated with breast implant illness or illnesses that could be associated with other implants, please make sure you call our office, because we are experts at helping the body detox and heal. I can't do the explant for you, but I can certainly make a recommendation on who to see. Handling detoxes is what we do, and helping people heal is what we do. That's what we are experts in. So please make sure you contact our office if you have questions, if you have concerns. We would love to be able to help you improve your health as naturally as possible. And you can call the office at the number here. So we would love to help you in your healing journey. And our info is in the show notes of how you can contact us, but please make sure you follow us. There's a list of different ways you can follow us, or you can also check our show notes, and you can also check out our website and contact us through that as well. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm Dr. B, here with Thrive Vision. Bye-bye.